today about prototyping for game developers. First, I would like to just say a few words about Petsnel Academy itself. The concept of it, it's our, with Andrei, concept for creating events like that, where we just trying to ask professionals from many kind of disciplines, like art disciplines, like game development, fine arts, maybe it can be the comic arts or even the film industry. So, and we want to reach out the newcomers to help those to start doing the art, the improvement in the art, the grow up, and with the guide of the professionals like us who work in the industry many years already. So now I would like to back to my talk. The prototyping as a way of communicating with the game. So basically, if you have an idea to create something, it comes from nowhere, and you should just start somehow with that idea. You can just using some questions, for example, with your teammates, or maybe you can just discuss about your idea with other guys, or you can just brainstorm with yourself with some tools. And I would like just to show my workflow on understanding my own idea, how to improve it, how to grab it from nowhere and put it in the real world, like us, like our world. So this is me. I'm an art director in the Petsnel Studios, and I came from the animation and outsourced mostly, and basically most of my work was with the clients, and my talk will be aimed for a teamwork with the other guys, not the solo game development. So my current projects right now is Gamedev Mine, which is already released on the App Store and the Google Play. You can already try it, and it's gained already 500,000 downloads. And Fantasy Defense is only a month in development, and it's a classical tower defense game where you just need to use your towers and defend your kingdom from the monsters. So back to the prototyping. I like to show you just the fundamentals of the prototyping itself. So for me, the prototyping came from the product design. You can see here on these videos, I downloaded from YouTube. It's how this guy, designer, using the materials like a wood or maybe plastic or maybe something more, and the tools. So he uses materials to cut from those materials some interesting things which are already engineered somehow. Maybe he already have a blueprint of that stuff or something, and he already have a purpose why he do this prototype. So like this, yeah. And I'm trying to compare prototyping for a product, for a game, with the product design, how they work with that. And to be as much easier as I can, I will try to split the prototyping for three reasons. The first one is prototyping for the purpose. So that means that firstly you should research a question. So research a question will show you what and where you will be looking for, and what is your expectation on the product itself. For example, here is some of my past projects. I just start doing assets for a prototype to understand how many parts of this character do I need to have, how how I can just make a scheme for these assets, how many attachments he have to just change those between development. And this should be the first thing, because you need to understand the whole system of your development, how you will manage with all these parts. The second thing is to sell a concept. No matter who you work with, I mean, maybe you work with developers, with managers, with clients, just need to improve somehow your idea into the appealing art thing. You just need to show somehow in pretty funny and friendly things. So you can see here the first concept was a pretty not so colored yet, and I just added some colors. I add characters into on these balls, and all these things just looks much better now. And this concept can be shown to represent it to the next guy who sees after me, for example, manager, or maybe a developer, or maybe executive, even executive. It doesn't matter. But you need to sell somehow. I mean, sell not for money, but for overview. Another thing is to communicate an idea. This slide shows how just be concentrated on only one thing. When you trying to make a prototype for something, be aware to create a prototype for a huge sense. Just trying to concentrate on only one thing, on one feature, on one movement, or one manipulating stuff or something like that. And next slide is about InVision. I always try to promote his service. It's a just perfect service for indie developers to just create a workable prototype for free of charge, only for one project. You just need to put on his website your images. You just need to put these boxes as collisions, like you can just push it on these objects, and what action you will see after that. For the logically created roadmap, for example, for your game backgrounds, you can use it, or maybe for many things, what you want to do with this game. The next slide is about, I just want to show the created prototype of the user interface with only InVision, so you can port it in any kind of devices like iPad, iPhone, Android devices, and all sorts of things. You can just test it, how it look and feel on its device. And it's simple to use. You can just, if you have already a lot of assets, you just put it on the InVision, just place it these collision boxes, and you have a chance to test it or to show it somewhere. The next thing is a game. It's prototyping for understanding your game type. First one is paper cut. When I worked on a platformer game, maybe 5 years ago or something, it was our first game actually, which we created. Right now it's on the Google Store, I think. I just managed to cut all the assets on the papers to understand how many layers I have, how I need to place it on the screen, how many depth of field I have on the screen. Maybe it sounds like it's not usable, but if you can just touch your game, it's not the same feeling as you have it on your computer. So if you want advice from me, just do it and you will feel it like I do many years before. Another thing which you can use with the video animations is to test analog process. Actually, here you can see I created a concept how the game will look only using a flash. So I created this video, I think, in 1 hour or something, and just show it to guys next to me, and they just comment and give me a feedback, and I just start moving on the another ideas. And here you can see another example of that. And all of those concepts, it's not a prototype itself. It's basically the prototype means like the product with the minimum resources on it. And I just really like to have expectation of the finished project, and I try to put all my expectation inside the video, because if you work with the developers, usually they create not what you want, and all these things is based on iterations. You just drop to the developers, they give it to you again, you just drop it again and again and again and again, and if you have a video to just show everything, how this will work, how that will work, it's much more easy to understand. And this is our last game. Just show it again with the video to developers how I see the buildings, how I see this building process, how I feel on that. And the developers came to me with a solution, and we just trying to understand which method is better for us. Yeah. And the last one is prototyping. Is this something like results from all these fast parts? You can just measure the timing on production cycle. If you have done all these things which I showed before, you already start to understand how many times I need to create assets, how many parts I have in a scene, how many objects I have in one level or background. I don't know. Do I have a foreground, background, and other things on my screen, or maybe I have only one static screen? It's everything is meaningful. You need to measure the budgets for somebody. And the last thing, what I want to talk about is design thinking. So it's that means that you need to create something like an ecosystem with your team, or maybe with your developer, maybe with your executive, if you maybe with you if you work alone, I don't know. But you need to have an ecosystem. And my ecosystem, if I work in team, something like that, if I have if I start to work with some guys from my team, I start to trying to be as much empathy as I can, to just understand the pain what they have from taking art source from me, what they need from me. And both of us, for example, artist and developer, have generated a point of view, which most of the point of view is centralized between the two persons, not like the art director saying that, and I want to make it like that. It should be centralized between the art direction and the developers. So after that, I take all this point of view and create an idea, then making a video prototype, for example, or maybe the prototype in vision if I need to, for example, add a new button on the main screen. If you create a game for PC, it doesn't really matter. But if you put it on the mobile phone, it's a pretty limited screen size. You need to put somehow another button, and you don't know how. And this is just an example. And then you should test it. Here I mean by testing just to showing, for example, to the next guy after you, or maybe you can show it to your friends, to your family members and other guys who you know, maybe you don't know, maybe on the forums somewhere. And here on this point, you should understand that you already failed on that thing. You need to be emphasized by for the other guys, because they will give a lot of feedbacks, and you need to follow this circle maybe 3 or 5 times to complete your prototype, to have meanings equally between each members of your team. So something like that. Yeah, that was a last screen. And one thing I want to say here, one friend of mine, he's sitting here, Alexei, can you just show it? So they trying to find some artists to work with him, artists or animators, not matter.
For money.
What?
For money. For hire. We're looking to hire an artist. So
yeah.
if you're interested in working in this kind of project, let me know. What kind of project? This game is the first screenshot we have of the game right now, so only friends and family and you have seen it. We're only doing public in January. It's a 2D action game, not a platformer. It's hard to explain, and it's Sergei Dragunov. So
by the way, if you're interested in that,
for a job or have practice in art.
Yeah, you can just drop your email to this event page or somewhere. I think it's much easier to communicate with the Alexei. Now, I think it's question time. If you have something.
What comes after prototyping?
What case? Basically, most of those prototyping models is for the pitching product for somebody, or maybe for abandoned mine, using the prototyping to understand the background, how it should look, how many pressable things you need to put on the screen, something like that. It's compared on the moment itself when you're using, because sometimes programmers didn't need me. They just put the squares, for example, if they just make a physically based on the physics prototype or something. But all of those prototypes is for the artist to show the ideas or how to implement the new feature in the game. So it's for the teamwork. Maybe if project is already existed and you just work on that, you need to have this ecosystem again for work with the developers.
Do you use the same cycle of empathy, prototyping and testing you showed during the whole project and only for prototyping?
I'm trying to use it always.
It should be, in my opinion, should be universal, like this, for the whole project to the end.
Yeah. The main thing of this cycle is not to stuck on some idea. You need to just progress it in any cycle, in any round. You just need to maybe decline some old ideas and create new, like an agile system or something like that. Yeah. I think agile is pretty close to that. Yes.
I have a question. With these mobile, you mainly focus on mobile games then, right?
Yes.
What seemed to me, is it worth nowadays? Like, is it financially, in your experience, does it pay? I've kind of, at some point, I actually even quit my job with the plan of starting making like some games with Unity and whatever. And then I ended up actually started doing research on it. And according to the statistics, it doesn't look so good if you don't have like serious money to put into advertising.
Yeah, but you need to understand that it's not about 1 year or maybe 2 years of work. It's about the product itself. If you create a product, you need to just work with that product. If it works, actually, you will start to work with that. And maybe you can work on some, for example, some of my friends work on the mobile games already more than 6 or 7 years. And maybe first 2 years it was pretty bad. only when they just put the project on some I don't know, maybe it just compare with some actions on the politics or something, just to move the traffic inside the game. Maybe it's really hard to say how it's good or bad right now to start, because most of the developers here right now focus it on the PC games and Steam and all sorts of things. But I just like the mobile games because it's much easier to implement it and release it. And for me, it's much more important to create as fast as possible the product, because you can test it maybe in a few days if you have tools like a Flash, for example. Yeah.
What's so far in your experience? What's the best way to monetize the games?
Monetize.
Well,
I think it depends on the project, but I think if you have something like a heroes, for example, when you have an action phase in the game and you have a meta phase of the game where you just need to update your weapons and all sorts of things. Maybe this gaming model is much better right now for monetization.
But in your experience, that's what kind of is works best for actually getting money from the people, is to sell like
loot boxes and
microtransactions. Yeah, exactly, like character upgrades or whatever.
So as I know right now, this advertising model works much better than pay for something. Yeah, so you can just use the Unity ads inside your game, for example, for taking some hints about how to achieve that thing. And do you want to just see the advertising? Yes. And then I just take the money from this guy, from the advertising.
Can I just add, because I think your question is more related to our organization rather than to art directly. So, in terms of starting a game company, as you've said, you know, it's you basically you can't make your first game and then just money falls from the sky on you. Like a good example of that is Rovio with Angry Birds. This is what is like the 50th game and 52nd.
I just asking these experience, like what's been the best model for them to actually get money for it? Like how, whether like to manage advertising, whether like as much as I've heard so far, the best is to have like, in order to like advance in the game, you play like advertising like short videos and stuff. Yeah. So far what I've read, but I was wondering what his point of view was.
Yeah, but I would like to say just I am an indie developer only 1 month right now.
Okay.
Before that I was involved in a
you should add this, that you actually quit from your stable job.
Yeah, only right now I just had a chance actually to quit my job, but not the monetization. It's about investing.
I thought you've been like developing games for 10 years, that's what I was like.
Yeah, making games 10 years, but it was much more like a hobby after work, And I say the models which works for my friends, maybe it's in the market, it's a lot of created models for.
But you have experience already from Abandoned Mines game.
Yeah. In Abandoned Mines, we have a 2% of the audience who pay money to us. It's not so much actually, but it works.
Yeah, sorry, can I just finish my sentence as well?
Yeah.
Basically. So basically, we're quite fortunate here in Estonia because, for instance, we have an organization like ours, International Game Development Association of Estonia. It's actually my job to go out and help people to actually make their games successful. We have events dedicated to game development every single month. Actually, this month we have like back-to-back events. We also have a community of hundreds of people who are very actively involved in Estonian game development. So any questions you have, there's a pool of hundreds of people who will come over and help you. with any sort of question.
And now we have even for game artists as well.
Yeah, exactly.
If I can add something, I have lately done a game. I haven't done any micro games, but I have done this advertisement. So currently the best thing is if you do it really good, incentivized ads. We had in the game, we had incentivized ads, but we had, like for test, we had also banner ads, and those incentivized ads, like they earn like 10 times more than banner ads. But this maybe can be completely different in half year, but currently well done incentivized ads are very good.
Yeah, I'm just like, the main thing has been that I've heard that it has to be like huge, like the whole logic was that very part. You have to have like this massive gamer base in order to actually earn any.
No, it's not gamer base. Actually, currently, if you want to do a mobile game and you want to succeed, then if you want, well, you can hope that you will do a hit and you will have some, I don't know, some placement in some app store, but this is very, very long shot. Currently, if you currently want to have succeed with free-to-play mobile game, what you have to do, you have to monetize. It has to be a really good game that people play, and you have to monetize it really good with, you have to have in-app purchases, and you have to have those ads. And then what you want to aim is that average player's lifetime value is a little bit bigger than the cost of purchasing those players. So, for example, if you purchase players from Philippines like 20 cents, but you have like average lifetime value of those players like 60 cents, then basically you have money print machine. This is at the moment, this is the formula. So maybe I talked a little bit too much business secret, but yeah.
No, that's exactly what I was asking.
You are right.
I just realized from my credit card or my bank statement, I just realized that I've been taking, I don't know if every month or every other month, I've been taking like 360 for some kind of app that I thought I bought, but actually I signed up for recurring cost. So I canceled it, of course, but there's like some sneaky stuff going on as well.
By the way, let's just move for arts department.
Well, let's separate conversation related to that.
Yes. I would like to ask about the prototyping. Like, for example, you can talk out of example of the abandoned mine. How many prototyping phases does something go through? Like, if something easy goes like through, I don't know, 1, 2 prototypes. You polish it with every prototyping session. So for something bigger, how many prototyping cycles can something take?
It can be hundreds of prototypes. I just calling that prototype, but actually it's a concept. For me it's a prototype, because the prototype it's a product with the with the lowest resources, which you can use. And for me, I can just sometimes I create for example, 5 prototype in one day. But once again, it's a concept. Maybe I just name that not really correctly, but for me as an artist, the product is art, and I just try to concentrate on that. Yeah.
Have you used your prototypes for focus testings and stuff like that, for testing in a bit wider audience than only very close teammates?
Yeah, if we work with some guys who have already audience, we put the videos in the forums or maybe in the communities, and they just give a feedbacks to us. It's pretty useful for that. It's created for that firstly, but maybe if you need to show, for example, to your team, you need to show also to the community if you have already created a game. Yeah. That's the answer.
You have Unity logo. Have you maybe used Playmaker for
actually, I use it probably the owl engines, but the Unity here obviously because I just trying something. But Abandoned Mind, for example, is created not with the Unity, it's created with the Flash, and after that we port everything into the iOS and Android. Yeah. But we're using Flash as a creator, just to put all the scenes inside to have all the actions. Yeah. But Unity, yeah. You're talking about the game maker. Yeah.
No, Playmaker. This is a plugin for also very good prototyping plugin even for artists for Unity.
Yeah, but by the way, I think I should be a little bit a developer if I use something like that to create some scripts or something. But I have tried to use scripts, but for me it just took too much time. I just need to show as fast as possible my ideas to developers because we always have a developer somewhere, maybe our friends or guys who work with us, and I'm trying to just using my imagination how to see my idea without the developers.
Have you sometimes maybe prototyped from paper the big map and made little figures and then realized that it's actually a pretty good board game?
Well, it's a good idea. Why not? No, I didn't do that, but it's a good idea. Yeah, great. Thanks a lot.
No questions? Let's thank Sergei. Okay, we have now again a 5 minutes break.